Okay guys, so today I'm doing this video on, one of the big issues of the game, which is, in my opinion, how OP the range units are, right? So when you're playing a range unit, it will trade with any other range unit, and it will not take return damage from melees unless it's adjacent to the unit it attacks. So basically, range units are, one of the best units you can have regardless or anything else, their ability or their mana cost in the game, right? And with the new changes that they want to implement into the game, changing the objective to killing the leader to kill towers, now we'll see a lot more obstacles, which means that melee units going to be harder to reach to the towers, and range units are going to be even stronger. Now, with a lot of obstacles, it's going to be easy to body block, for example, with your leader, and to use your range units to attack your opponent range units, or melee units, and not take any damage. And I think from anybody that started playing the game, they realized really fast how powerful range units are, and that range units they really don't have downsides. Like, the only downside I can see to a range unit is they only have 2 movement instead of 3. But even then, they have so much range that it doesn't really matter. So, in regard to that problem in the game and to, the game growing and changing style and everything, I want to address some ideas that the community come together, and I had Sid, who compiled them all into one big, list and give it to me. So I'm gonna share the thoughts on of the community, that what we can do to change range units to make it a little more unique and not over powered like they are right now. Like, if you don't have a removal or a more powerful range unit, it's kind of GG. You know what I'm saying? So it's really annoying that it's like that, and while we're changing so much of the stuff, we can also address this. So let's start with one of the first thing that comes as a solution, or kind of a solution, to try and tone down the power of the range units. So most of the people were saying that you could just make them worse statted. So, for example, if for a normal unit a 3 mana 3/4 is melee, then you will make like a melee range unit like 3 mana 2/3, for example, vanilla, and that will make it more in line with the melees. But the problem that I have with that suggestion is that it will make that if you have multiple range units, then they can all stack up their damage to a big one, and if the big one doesn't have like charge or anything, then it's never gonna get to the range unit. And even if when one of the melee goes to the range unit, they attack the range unit and they get attacked back, right? So this it may maybe work, but I'm not a fan of just making worse stats than the other ones just because they have range. I mean, of course you have to consider that they're range, so yes, they're like inherently going to have lower stats, but you don't want to significantly give them bad stats because of that. And it also makes it that it's going to be a lot harder to it's going to be a lot harder to make unique units if they all kind of have the same stats line or so, right? So the second thing that the community that was discussing is adjusting the return damage. So it will make that range units either don't do return damage or do reduce damage. And yeah, you get the point, right? So it is kind of, because if your melee attack will attack the range unit, then it wouldn't get return damage, so it was kind of free. That was the idea of it. But, when a range unit gets attacked by another range unit, then it won't return damage, and that will be really hard because the first unit to advance an attack, or advance and be in a position to attack next turn, then the opponent range unit is going to be able to advance and attack it and not take any return damage. Then it's going to be a war of zoning, and no one's going to attack nobody because of that. Just like the war of Venators right now is with the Romans. And I don't think that's going to be LT also for a change for the game. And now these two other suggestions that was come from the community are really interesting because they bring a lot of tactics to the game, and the concept of a front line and a back line to the game also, which we don't really have right now, right? If I want to play a range unit, I better play it adjacent to your leader, so if you move away and you try to place something down, my range unit's going to be able to move too, and with 4 range be able to shoot anything, right? So there's no disadvantage into putting my range units adjacent to your leader or in the front line, right? I can then just retreat after, because there's no more taunt in the game, so I can just move back after and shoot. So the only really way to force a range unit to get attacked by melees by like rooting them or kind of surround them so they can't move. So here's the third idea. You want to create line of sight. So, this is basically that if there's an obstacle in the way, you're not going to be able to fire the unit because you will fire at the obstacle instead. So obstacles will not only, make it that they're obstacle for movement, but also for range unit, will make it positioning a lot more important for range unit. So you actually need to think, much more where do you want to place your range units, and is it worth going into that position, being able that, we're just going to have some angles for shooting. And that will also make that the opponent's big minions will be able to protect their archers in the back line, just like, a real tactic in war game works. You don't think that, I think that if that will be implemented, you will not be blocked by your own units, but only by the enemy units, right? So Hercules will be a really big wall to protect, like, the Venators in the back, for example. And yeah, so that is really, really interesting, right? And you can also use it as, for example, if they want to implement a wall, like a mirror wall, you can also use that to block range units. And any obstacle, really, are going to be able to go with line of sight. But the problem with line of sight, I was thinking, is that there's a point when, because it's diagonally, right? How do you choose when a unit is in diagonal space to another unit? How do you choose if it's or if it doesn't hit, right? So you will have to make really a rule for these particular scenarios, and it kind of have to happen a lot of the times, right? So, it's not the best idea, but it's something maybe we can try, since we're trying so much stuff right now with the game. And that made me think, moving forward to the 4-point. And in my opinion, I think that is one of the best ideas that the community came with, and it's really cool. And it's basically that, for example, when range units attack the melee units do not return the damage. But what if you do it also the other way around, which when melee units attack the range units cannot attack them back, which means that range units can't attack or deal return damage to adjacent units of adjacent of them, right? So, which means if my melee goes attack your archer, well, the archer cannot attack it back because he has a range of minimum 2, for example, or adjacent. You get the point, right? So if your archer will shoot my archer, then both will attack themselves. And if my melee attack your melee, both will attack themselves. But if, melee attack a range, then the melee will not take return damage. And if the range is out of range of the melee and attack the melee, then the melee will not attack him back, basically. And that will make it really interesting. And that will make it so important to have frontliners and melee units in your army composition, right? Because right now, you're just throwing every ranged unit that you can, you put it in your deck. Because they're just too powerful to pass on, right? They just have no downside. But if we add this to the game, this means that having melee units is actually really important if you want to be able to position yourself well and everything, right? Having a bunch of range units, if they're all surrounded by melee units, they will just die, or they will be forced to attack other units away of them. So that will make it really interesting, a lot more tactical, and it will be, I think a really good change for range units. And then what could be the problems with that, right? Then the problems you have with that is, how do you deal with like range leaders, right? Because the range leaders, if they can't attack adjacent to them, they will just get killed really easily by all the melee units, and then you have a problem because the range leaders are really not that great anymore. It's not just a little nerf you do to them; it's a really big nerf. And then Sid thought PN'd me a really cool idea that we can have in the game, and that will import the classes from SMITE to SMITE Tactics, right? Let me give you an example. I'm gonna read you a little bit of what he sent me. He sent me with with the changes on that the range can't attack melee, and that the range, and you can add, for example, various classes. So let me read it, right? I think it's gonna be easier for you to understand. So warriors will have a range of 1 for attack and movement of 3, just like, for example, Guan Yu and Odin works right now. And then you will have assassins who will have a range of 1 still, but it will have movement on 4. And if they choose to, if Hara is like in Scott, right, Scott Gandy decides to do bigger maps, that will be really impactful, right? If the assassin have 4 movement and 1 range, for example, Loki, that will be really, really cool. And for example, Thor, or you can make Thor a warrior or whatever you want, right? But get the difference between having classes and in between the gods. Will they make them really more unique of what they are right now, which is basically the same thing as Minion. And then you can have the Guardian, who have 1 range and 2 movement, but they have high health stats, just like Ymir and like Athena and Khepri and Geb. They're really high statted, but they will only have 2 movement, for example, and be the range from 1 to just 1, and like Khepri will be an exception to that rule, for example. And then you'll have the hunters, like Neith, like Anhur. The hunters will have a range from 2 to 4, so hunters will not be able to attack adjacent units, so they will be weak to assassins, guardians, and warriors, for example, but they will be able to attack them from far away, since they will have a range 2 to 4, and they will still have a movement of 2, right? And then you go into one of, I think that will fix the problem that we had before, right? So it will be to have mages. For example, Isis and Ra, they will be mages, and they will have a range from 1 to 3. So that will nerf the range from getting able to really attack really far away. So we'll just have 3 range, but they will be able to attack adjacent units, which means that when they get attacked, they can attack back. And that will make it that, yes, you will have to make that the leaders are not hunters, because you want them to at least have the 1 range, right? So how is the game is right now, we have no hunters as leaders, so that is working fine for everything, or for the purpose of this example. And that mages have a range from 1 to 3, so they can attack adjacent, they can attack at range, but it's reduced range, for example. So you get it, right? And they will be sorry for that. They will be like, they could be attacked from max range from another range units. So it's really important to move in to be able to deal return damage to range units, since the range units have 4 and they only have 3. So that will make it all the game really more tactical, and obviously the mage will only move by 2 as they are right now, like all the mages like Zeus and Isis and Ra. And yeah, and then you will have the melee minions, who are the, like we know, 3 movement, 1 range, and the range minions, who can be nerfed if you want also. from the range goes to like 3 range and 2 movement. So the only ones with 4 range will be the hunters, and that will give them, you know, a little oomph, be able to attack with more range, but not be able to attack adjacents, right? So that will probably be really interesting to see the balance of all these, that idea to having different class and to adjust the, you know, with that the range units around how, and then you can add, like I said, you can add the stats like you want and change a little bit of that. And yeah, I think that will be really cool, especially with the new tower mode that we're getting in. If they introduce something like that, or if you want to try it, Scott, I mean, I'm talking to you, Scott, Gandhi, and Harizadonis, since I know that you will probably hear me out. I mean, at least just hear the ideas that the community had and what I'm trying to tell you. And that will be, like, we need to do something against range units right now, because it's going to be even more of a problem, I think, in the new mode that you're bringing in. And we're just trying here to, you know, we're just trying to make the game great. And I'm trying to help you and giving as much as ideas possible, right? I'm not saying like do this and we need to try out. I'm just giving you ideas, and I really thought I was a unique idea that would be really amazing, and I really would love to try it out. But you know, it's up to you. You know, I think you got the message, and I think that will be really, really awesome to see how you decide to make the game grows. I'm hyped to see, you know, what changes are coming with the towers. Of course, balance-wise, it's going to be adaptations, and we're going to need to see what needs to be turned down and what is really weak. But overall, I am excited for that, and I'm really hope that you're going to ponder on maybe adding these, you know, Warriors, Assassin, Guard, and Mage Hunter with different range and different movement into the game. I know it's a lot of work, but I don't know. I just hope that it's gonna get there maybe, and we'll see if it may happen, right? So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you soon.